During an interview about events from 9 months ago at TF29's North America division in Phoenix, there were questions about personal interactions with Agent Hector Guerrero. The interview was meant to clarify what happened in Arizona, not related to events in London. The mission was the first undercover assignment at TF29 involving infiltration of a supermax prison called the Penthouse. Intel suggested potential terror attacks on pro-aug locations in the US that could cause massive casualties. Agent Guerrero, working dark ops undercover in the prison, needed to confirm this intelligence. Upon arrival at the prison, all inmates had their augmented abilities disabled. The processing included detailed scanning of augmentations, which revealed extensive military-grade prosthetics. The cover story involved a 5-year sentence for aggravated assault and negligent homicide. During processing, a suppression chip was implanted that caused intense pain when attempting to use augmentations. This technology effectively disabled all augmented abilities within the prison environment. The mission objective was to locate Guerrero, who was using the alias Oscar Mejia in B Block. The plan required maintaining a low profile and following prison protocols while dealing with hostile inmates and guards. Tension in the prison was high, particularly between guards and inmates. An inmate named D-Town warned about guard brutality, specifically mentioning Officer Stenger and his crew who deliberately provoked inmates. The recent death of Wilburn, a respected Cosa Nostra gangster, had increased hostilities. Information was received about a person called the Fixer, an imprisoned former doctor who could help with the pain from the suppression chip. This led to meeting Dr. Wertmuller in cell 8212, who spoke in an erratic manner about making deliveries and helping with the suppression chip effects. Dr. Wertmuller explained how the suppression chip worked, causing pain whenever augmented abilities were used. He offered a pill combining various drugs like diamorphine, fentanyl, and oxycodone that could supposedly numb the pain and restore access to augmentations. A medication was taken that caused temporary vision issues but successfully eliminated pain from a choke and restored access to some augmentations. While it was considered worth the risk, despite potential side effects like mood changes, headaches, and memory loss, there seems to be underlying concern about ongoing issues. A smuggling operation involving a biocell hidden inside a stuffed toy was discussed. Though the biocell could have helped restore augmentation access, it was meant for someone named Flossie, and taking it would have risked both relationships and an important job. During a prison conversation, information was shared about Oscar Mejia, who had moved to B Block and was notably affected by Wilburn's death. A customized bio was discussed as being valuable, leading to negotiations about accessing B Block. A deal was struck involving delivery of an item to someone called Red Shoes in B Block. A key card was provided that could bypass security, though caution was still advised. Red Shoes could be found in the cool-off cages and would be recognizable by causing trouble. Upon meeting Red Shoes, a tense exchange occurred regarding the delivery of a special item. Red Shoes revealed Mejia's location in exchange for the item, expressing excitement about upcoming events and showing gratitude to Flossie. An Interpol agent named Walters revealed themselves, discussing potential terror threats against pro-aug groups. Agent Guerrero, undercover as Mejia, refused to abandon their current operation despite the alleged threats, believing them to be insignificant. The situation escalated when someone called Stinger interrupted, announcing Mejia's arrest for Wilberg's murder. This led to chaos and confrontation, highlighting rising tensions within the prison. The aftermath of the shower incident was discussed, with attempts to explain and fix the situation. Someone criticized Mejia's actions as going off script and endangering the operation. The conversation revealed a prison riot triggered by Frederick Flossie, who had smuggled a biocell to an inmate. This led to a security breach at the biocell storage, resulting in chaos reminiscent of events from 2027. The choke system mysteriously failed to activate. There was intense conflict in the prison after inmates had chips implanted that altered their nature. A riot response team was being deployed to handle the situation. The cell block was reported clear, but there was trouble near the admin building. Some dismissed the threat, believing inmates couldn't take over the entire facility. Rather than breaking cover when Guerrero's life was threatened, the decision was made to maintain undercover status and find a way into solitary independently. This was deemed safer since Stinger was involved in suspicious activities and his reaction was unpredictable. The situation required careful navigation through an active prison riot. A complex conversation revealed that Flossie had orchestrated events and coordinated others into participating in a planned uprising. While persuasive, his true motives remained unclear. The uprising appeared futile since escape from the facility seemed impossible, even with special biocells that would eventually burn out. Details emerged about a tampered biocell delivery that was integral to starting the riot. The modified cells, made with special compounds, allowed inmates to bypass security measures and access their augmentations despite suppression chips. This flooding of power throughout the blocks enabled widespread violence. A mysterious fixer character remained hidden while offering enhancement pills with unknown side effects. Despite uncertainty about the long-term consequences, more pills were taken. The fixer admitted to extensive self-testing of the compounds under Flossie's direction. A tense situation developed as critical information about terrorist attacks came to light. Stinger was revealed to be targeting someone for elimination, creating urgency around escaping the facility while also addressing the larger threat of potential attacks. An elaborate black market operation was exposed involving the harvesting of augmentations from inmates. The scheme used the prison system as cover, with inmates being given death sentences as pretext for organ harvesting. Key figures including Stinger and a fixer called Worthmuller were implicated. The investigation had gone dark to prevent interference from authorities seeking quick results rather than long-term solutions. Building trust with the criminal organization called Junkyard required significant time and resources. A complex escape plan was formulated involving an automated transport on the roof. Questions arose about adherence to task force protocols and proper extraction procedures. The mission parameters had shifted based on new intelligence, requiring adaptation to ensure survival and mission success. The situation demanded immediate action despite potential risks. A tense conversation unfolds between individuals discussing safety concerns and waiting for something to happen. A character named Nushin arrives to find someone celebrating their success in uniting different factions and taking control of a facility. The conversation reveals past dealings involving a delivery to Red Shoes and suggests some violent events occurred during this power consolidation. The discussion continues about the necessity of showing force to maintain control. The new leader justifies their actions as the only way to achieve their goals and offers to help access the transport tracking system located in the warden's office. A series of computer system interactions follow, with multiple anomaly detections and trace programs being initiated. The narrative shifts to discuss a situation involving Stanger and Worthmuller arguing on security monitors, with questions about Guerrero's location and motives. The scene transitions to the infirmary, where someone needs to investigate suspicious activities. A confrontation occurs regarding someone messing with the wrong family, involving a person named Gina. The conversation becomes threatening, with implications of violence and attempts at intimidation. Despite the threats, one party reminds the other they can't be touched inside the facility. The focus turns to a damaging recording involving Guerrero that suggests potential motives for Wilburn's murder. The situation becomes complicated as escape plans hang in the balance, with concerns about returning to Interpol. A crucial conversation reveals deep complexities about an undercover operation. The agent named Hector expresses frustration about being embedded too long in Junkyard, having gotten closer to the organization than intended. The psychological toll of maintaining a cover identity becomes apparent as loyalty lines blur. The dialogue explores the challenges faced by undercover agents, particularly the struggle of maintaining authentic identities while deep undercover. There's discussion about making difficult choices and the possibility of redemption through helping with a terrorist threat investigation. The conversation shifts to examine the nature of the prison facility and its effects on inmates. A revelation occurs about two individuals who chose to be there, with one apparently forgetting they were pretending. The discussion touches on the ability to keep secrets and the influence of authority figures. A conversation about being selective with actions and avoiding harm to others takes place. The discussion emphasizes the importance of protecting oneself while staying away from causing injury to others. This seems to mark a pivotal moment of agreement between two parties about following a specific approach. A tense interrogation occurs regarding the confrontation with Agent Guerrero. The discussion reveals potential memory inconsistencies, though the interrogator carefully frames it as minor discrepancies in reports. The subject confirms killing Agent Guerrero, describing him as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The subject raises a hypothetical question about taking out a potentially corrupt agent without hesitation. The conversation reveals underlying doubts about the official narrative, with the subject noting that Guerrero was correct about a fabricated terror attack, suggesting deeper conspiracies at play. News reports detail a horrific incident on Sista Airlines Flight 451, where an augmented passenger killed 251 people. This connects to the AUG incident from 2 years prior, when augmented individuals worldwide experienced violent psychotic episodes, resulting in massive casualties. A mission briefing introduces an operation targeting Shepard, an ex-Bell Tower commander selling weapons and military-grade augments to terrorists. The team includes Agent Jensen, the only augmented operative, and involves coordinating with an undercover agent named Singh, who infiltrated the Jinn cartel. The operation begins with team deployment to secure an abandoned hotel. Jensen takes position on the roof, while other team members navigate through the building, noting the presence of numerous corpses from the AUG incident. The mission involves blocking access routes and maintaining communications. The operation reaches its climax as strike teams get into position. The weapons deal with Shepard goes wrong when unexpected attackers intervene. Chaos erupts, leading to Shepard's death and a desperate attempt to prevent a helicopter escape. Jensen successfully grounds the chopper. The conclusion reveals broader themes about human-machine merging and the Illuminati's control. News reports highlight widespread augmentation-related violence across major cities including Detroit, Shanghai, Los Angeles, Ankara, and Dubai, leading to calls for augmented citizen relocation. A tense discussion reveals growing societal unrest in the aftermath of the AUG incident. There is fear and distrust between different groups, with mentions of terrorist attacks, including one at a police station. The United Nations has implemented new anti-terrorist measures in response to the deteriorating situation. A debrief about events in Dubai reveals a mission with heavy losses, but is still considered successful despite its erratic nature. The discussion suggests this chaos will confuse Interpol for weeks. The group appears to be manipulating public opinion for some larger agenda, though there is concern about deviation from their original plans. The meeting discusses how the AUG incident has caused major social division, with conditions becoming increasingly unstable. Plans are made to send representatives to New York to gather support for the Human Restoration Act. Financial and political pressure will be used to silence opposition. Key figures express doubt about the success of their New York initiative, describing the men there as weak. They discuss an alternate strategy and make arrangements to deal with a potentially problematic group called the Janus Collective. Orders are given to activate a sleep cell. The scene shifts to a conversation between Miller and Jensen about checkpoint security and paperwork. This is followed by an encounter where Jensen helps someone who dropped their belongings, leading to a discussion about the Dubai ambush and questions about why their team was specifically chosen for that mission. The atmosphere in the city has become increasingly tense, with people living in fear. A philosophical discussion ensues about fighting against hatred and prejudice, with emphasis on identifying and stopping the true power brokers behind recent events rather than just dealing with surface-level problems. The conversation turns technical, discussing the NSN, neural subnet, and a special wiretap device called a whisper chip. This technology is meant to intercept private communications between TF-29 directors. There are mentions of a mysterious hacker leader named Janus. The scene transitions to a video call between Adam and David Serif. They discuss recent events, including the bombing in Prague. Their conversation reveals their complicated past relationship and touches on major changes that have occurred over the past 2 years, including corporate takeovers and personnel movements. The conversation continues with discussion of a meeting in London with the Santo Group and Nathaniel Brown. They talk about the Safe Harbor Initiative and plans for self-sustaining cities built for augmented individuals. The conversation begins during the aftermath of an attack where augmentations were damaged. Someone needs to get their augmentations checked before heading back to the office. Meanwhile, there's an urgent situation at a bookshop with some aggressive valley gangsters causing trouble that needs immediate attention. A member of the Singularity Church of the Machine God attempts recruitment, explaining their belief in ascension, the process where minds merge with a divine machine consciousness. They claim it's more than just uploading brains to computers, but rather a complete transference led by someone called Yosef. The church appears exclusive to augmented individuals. The scene shifts to a restricted area that appears to be an old toy factory. It's revealed to be Drachmir's operations center where forgeries are produced. A forger named Milena explains she creates fake documents like permits, passports, and police credentials under threat of violence from Drachmir and his men. Milena reveals she initially began forging documents to help augmented friends avoid displacement to facilities like the Utulek complex. However, she now works under coercion from Drachmir, who runs a fake police checkpoint to extort people through an endless cycle of payments and false promises. She offers information about a real police officer who might help stop Drachmir. The forgery operation is discussed in more detail. The documents can't fully fool authorities due to increased security measures like scanners and validation numbers. Milena has 2 specific permits for people named Edward Broad and Drenka Bauer who need help. She provides a safe code, 2489, where Drachmir's money is kept. A conversation with a disillusioned police officer reveals the reality of working in Prague's police state. The officer expresses conflict about having to participate in AUG repression, using abstract thinking to cope with implementing discriminatory policies. They discuss Drachmir's illegal checkpoint operation and his ability to avoid consequences through bribes and fake documentation. The officer learns about Milena's forced labor in document forgery and becomes determined to take action against Drachmir despite institutional resistance. The situation ends with Drakmir being dealt with, and Milena expressing relief at being freed from his control. The scene concludes with talk of trouble with someone named Otar regarding a misunderstanding. A tense situation is unfolding with a dangerous group called the Diwali. There appears to be some internal politics and conflict happening after a recent bombing incident that has people on edge. Someone needs repairs to their systems that were damaged in the bombing and is seeking help to get everything operational again. The repair work requires using a special chair and putting the patient under with gas. The mechanic seems eager to examine the augmentations up close, though the patient expresses concern about being unconscious with Diwali threats looming. The mechanic dismisses these worries, insisting the chair procedure is safe. More details emerge about the Diwali situation. Othar Bakaveli is their second-in-command, whose men were involved, while Radic Nikoladze is the top boss. The mechanic claims to know Radic and says the situation will be handled. The focus returns to the urgent repair procedure needed. After the procedure, the patient wakes up disoriented. The mechanic reveals they discovered hidden experimental augmentations that were causing system issues. These unauthorized implants were draining power dangerously. The mechanic had to reboot the system to prevent a meltdown. The hidden implants are revealed to be experimental test augmentations, beyond what was officially installed by David Serif. They appear to be recent additions from within the past 2 years, possibly connected to time spent recovering at a facility in Alaska that the patient has trouble remembering clearly. The mechanic provides some praxis upgrade points and explains that managing power consumption between the various augmentations will require careful balancing. They mention a potential solution involving getting a neuroplasticity calibrator from Otar, accessible through his underground casino in the Chisti district. The scene shifts to an interaction with someone named Rinkov Bauer and a robot called Helena. They discuss an augmentation permit needed to avoid being sent to Golem City. The situation seems dire for Rinka, who is trying to remain in Prague legally. A confrontation occurs with someone named Adam about the discovered hidden augmentations. They contact Serif, who denies installing them but recognizes the design is work by Vadim Orlov, a Russian neuroscience prodigy. The technology involved was apparently based on theoretical Department of Defense concepts. A discussion reveals concerns about someone named Orlov, whose academic performance was stellar but whose theories were questionable. Megan Reed had expressed doubts about his ethics during an interview. Apparently, Orlov did not respond well to having his ideas challenged, especially by strong women. The Defense Department had valued input on his classified schematics, which were never copied but were considered solid work when approved by Serif Industries. An agreement is made to track down Orlov through various industry connections. The conversation reveals that after the Poncha incident, someone was rescued from the ocean and taken to a clinic in Alaska where they experienced memory loss and identity issues for some time. This raised concerning questions that needed answers. A news report covers multiple stories: a suicide attack on an augmented community, the Santo Group's Safe Harbor initiative in Tanzania, and their planned city called Rabia. The project aims to create secure housing for oppressed groups, led by CEO Nathaniel Brown. The news anchor expresses enthusiasm about upcoming convention reveals. A devastating incident aboard Sista Airlines Flight 451 is reported where an augmented passenger, possibly experiencing flashbacks to the Aug incident, attacked the crew, resulting in 251 deaths. The report references the historic Aug incident when augmented people globally experienced violent episodes, causing massive casualties. Dr. Talis Rucker, leader of the Augmented Rights Coalition, discusses the complex aftermath of violence in Prague. He emphasizes that the Aug incident affected everyone and argues against forced relocation of augmented people. The conversation becomes tense when discussing recent bombings and AARC's claimed non-violent stance. Global tensions continue 2 years after the Aug incident. Reports include armed citizen patrols in Montana, Chinese government suppression of human rights protesters, and retaliatory hacking of the Shenzhen Stock Exchange by vigilantes. These events highlight ongoing conflicts between augmented and non-augmented populations. A Santo Group representative named Felice Ullman pitches Rabia, a futuristic city project, to potential augmented workers. The offer includes sponsored work permits and potential residency through a lottery system. The conversation reveals Santos' increased augmented workforce and CEO Brown's commitment to supporting augmented rights. The discussion about Rabia continues, addressing concerns about segregation and comparing it to the failed Utulek complex. The Santos representative emphasizes the company's commitment to maintaining control of Rabia to prevent it from becoming another ghetto, though skepticism remains about whether it truly solves societal divisions. A confusing and disjointed conversation takes place where someone appears disoriented and talks about being disconnected. They mention that someone did something to them and that they cannot force others like this mysterious person does. The conversation reveals trauma and manipulation by an unnamed figure. The person describes seeing something that made someone fear them and mentions an opportunist or savior figure. When offered help to understand their situation, they begin explaining that this person is similar to them but more powerful. They discuss mind control and persuasion tactics being used. It is revealed that everyone beyond a certain gate has been signaled or influenced by someone described as being like a rat. The traumatized person explains that those most afraid of the world were likely to embrace this alternative reality. They stress the importance of confronting this figure by understanding their true nature. The mysterious figure is finally identified as Richard. The conversation suggests he has some form of control over others and needs to be untangled from them. There are hints about his personality not matching his actions. The scene shifts to a group of people expressing fear and devotion to Richard. Richard appears and presents himself as a leader of a pacifist community. He describes his place as a new form of freedom and a collaborative experiment in community building. He positions himself as someone saving people from the outside world's terror and humiliation. The conversation becomes tense as Richard defends his actions as saving people. He references the Restoration Act as a human rights violation and claims to offer people better versions of themselves. He asks for a promise not to jeopardize his community. The scene shifts to a meeting with Laborio, Richard's former partner. Laborio explains their past work in stage hypnosis enhanced by technology. They developed shows that created alternate realities for audiences, but were eventually shut down and treated as criminals. Laborio provides scrambling devices that can disable Richard's emitters and break his control over people. They express hope that this will help free the people under Richard's influence while asking for mercy toward Richard, describing him as a formerly decent person who wanted to improve the world. A tense confrontation unfolds about a group of people who have been gathered together under questionable circumstances. There are accusations that these individuals were manipulated and subjugated to follow a leader who portrayed himself as a messianic figure. While the leader claims he never actively recruited anyone, there are concerns about mind control and coercion. The leader defends his actions by claiming he provided a sanctuary for lost souls seeking answers and belonging. However, his methods are questioned, particularly his use of force and gun turrets against those who resist or question his authority. He justifies the weapons as necessary protection for their peaceful community. The truth begins to unravel as followers realize they may have been deceived. The leader attempts to maintain control by warning about persecution in the outside world, but his influence starts crumbling as people recognize the manipulative nature of his leadership. A follower named Visnik describes how the leader mentally manipulated them, creating false visions and perceptions. After questioning the leader, Visnik became isolated from the group but gained clarity about the deception. The experience left them feeling alone and displaced, struggling with their identity and place in the world. The scene shifts to a meeting with Otar Botkovelli, who appears to be involved in organized crime. A negotiation takes place regarding a neuroplasticity calibrator being withheld from someone named Vaclav Koller. Despite initial resistance to dealing with augmented individuals, an agreement is reached through careful diplomacy. An emotional encounter occurs with an elderly man who has been separated from his family due to events during the incident, a tragic moment when augmented people lost control due to Darrow's broadcast. He struggles with guilt over potentially harming someone during this time, though he has difficulty remembering exactly what happened. At a registration facility, there are complications with an employee ID borrowed from someone at a bar. The system only allows one validation slot due to Prague's strict quotas and regulations. Despite attempts to help two people, only one set of documents for Edwards could be properly processed and validated to pass scanning checks. A permanent registration fails to scan for someone named Milena, likely resulting in them being sent to Goli or facing arrest for fake documentation. While not a complete success, they did what they could to help within the constraints of the system. Instructions are given regarding planting a whisper chip into a data port on an NSN motherboard at TF-29. The mission must proceed quickly as their enemies remain active. The chip is described as an easy plug-and-play recording device installation. A reunion occurs at TF-29 after a dangerous incident. Arya expresses relief at seeing the survivor and describes the chaos when reports first came in. She provides a new shooting range access card, explaining that Chang implemented stricter security measures following the recent bombing, the third attack in 6 months. The whisper chip is successfully installed, but unexpectedly picks up a frequency. The operation is interrupted when Miller demands an immediate meeting. During a meeting, Miller expresses concern about potential system damage from a recent incident, but is assured there will be no adverse effects. He reveals that state police are attempting to block their investigation of the Rizika incident by claiming it falls under homegrown terror exemption rules. Agent Singh discusses a mission involving infiltration of Jinn prisoners through a planned escape from a black site. The conversation reveals details about an augmented kill squad incident in Dubai that severely impacted multiple organizations, including TF-29, Bell Tower, and Jinn. McCready leads the investigation into the gold-masked mercenaries from Dubai. The recovered bodies were professionally scrubbed of identifying features. Despite suggestions about looking beyond desert-based suspects, McCready insists on maintaining control of the case and ending outside involvement. The conversation begins with a background discussion about military service. After secondary school, the path led to the UK Special Forces at age 25, followed by recruitment into the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, SRR, 4 years later. Despite being an elite unit, the experience wasn't as glamorous as it might sound. After 12 years of counter-terrorism operations across various global locations, there was growing disillusionment with the endless cycle of evil in the world. This led to quitting the service. However, the need for purpose eventually brought about a return to active duty, viewing the role as a necessary tool with a specific function. The discussion shifts to a mission in Dubai and questions about why bodies were sent to Oman. Apparently, Oman was unhappy about not getting the original assignment. The explanation given was simply that this team was ready to deploy immediately, though some skepticism remains about the official reasoning. The situation in Jakarta is described as particularly challenging. There are serious concerns about security following recent explosions at key locations like police and train stations. While some maintain there is no reason for paranoia, Others worry about being specifically targeted. A major security breach is revealed. Praha Dovos, a front company, has been hacked. This raises serious concerns about whether their cover has been compromised. The team must investigate whether terrorists have discovered their true location while reviewing security camera footage from recent attacks. Investigation reveals the hacker has been traced to an unrented apartment at 33 Halabny, uncomfortably close to their location. This proximity adds to existing security concerns, prompting a need for careful investigation of the computer used in the hack to determine the scope of the threat. Internal challenges are discussed regarding supply requests and team composition. There are ongoing debates about allowing augmented agents, with some facing resistance due to medical requirements like higher Neuropozyne doses. Despite proven capabilities, bureaucratic and medical concerns create barriers. The conversation transitions to tactical training advice, covering weapons handling and combat techniques. Key tips include reloading before empty magazines, utilizing targeting assistance, and understanding the effectiveness of different ammunition types against various targets. Advanced weapons training continues with discussion of attachments like silencers. While they reduce noise, they also decrease stopping power, requiring more ammunition. Various weapon upgrades are available and should be considered for different tactical situations. Initially, there were suspicions about Best Front being just a facade, but it was revealed that Praha is actually registered as a legitimate international shipping corporation throughout the European Union. They have impressive capabilities, being able to establish offices, stations, or depots anywhere in Europe within 72 hours. A discussion about Agent Chang revealed hacking concerns. The conversation clarified there are two types of agents, those doing field work and those analyzing data. Chang was described as someone who spends too much time in his head, though competent. The task force recently brought in a new psychologist. Details emerged about suspicious activities, including unauthorized utility statement access and incomplete order information. An elderly woman had been observed acting suspiciously, appearing to be interested in computer terminals. This matter was reported to Chang for investigation. A smart home system activated, performing security protocols including human presence detection, file scanning, and trace program initiation. The system demonstrated personality by offering different voice options and making somewhat playful security-related comments. Information surfaced about a group called Samostat, described as conspiracy theorists who could potentially threaten task force operations. Their activities were concerning enough to warrant immediate investigation, with emphasis on determining their knowledge and intentions. An encounter with journalists revealed their interest in various conspiracy theories, including stories about moon bases and clones. They identified themselves as part of Samostat, expressing strong beliefs about freedom of information and collective responsibility. The discussion centered on Praha Dovos, with Samostat members claiming it was more than just an import company. They mentioned observing agent activity and described it as part of a larger concealment operation. A deal was proposed where Samostat would cease investigation into Praha Dovos in exchange for inside information about Picus Media. They specifically requested information from the Palisade CEO Ashani Talver's office, believing she possessed compromising data about Picus. The conversation shifted to Samostat's investigative focuses. They shared various statistics and theories about geological events, population changes, and media control. They claimed Picus controls 94% of world media and suggested most reporting is unreliable. The Dubai incident was discussed, with claims it involved ex-Bell Tower mercenaries and Slavic gangsters in an orchestrated event. The source of this information remained vague, described only as voices in the dark and whispers out of reach. A major news story emerges about a commercial airliner crash near an ionospheric research facility. The incident was allegedly caused by military activity rather than an augmented passenger as claimed by Picus Media. Additionally, Picus had prior knowledge of a chemical spill affecting the water supply, but only warned their employees, not the general public. A group called Praha Dovos, describing themselves as counterculture patriots, is working to publicize these stories. They request assistance in hacking a city information hub to ensure the news gets proper exposure. Their mission is to provide an alternative perspective to mainstream media narratives. A separate conversation reveals efforts to suppress information about Samus' death, with assurances that the situation has been handled through reasoning with conspiracy theorists. A warning is issued about maintaining a low profile, as Picus Media may become hostile. A confrontation occurs in a restricted neon drug lab. The chemist is warned about the consequences of drug manufacturing and distribution. Despite philosophical arguments about personal freedom and body autonomy, the chemist ultimately agrees to cease neon production under pressure. Smiley, who is investigating a crime scene, reports being accused of evidence tampering. They discovered potentially crucial evidence in a 3D mass spectrometer scan of an explosion site, but were forced to leave before retrieving it. They request help in obtaining the scan from the heavily guarded tourist office. New developments emerge, including decrypted audio from a whisper chip tap and evidence leading to Golem City. A new psychologist must clear personnel before proceeding with the investigation. There are discussions about stress levels affecting field agent status, particularly regarding Neuropozyne resistance and rehabilitation challenges. The situation concludes with the successful retrieval of the crucial scan from the tourist office, marking a significant breakthrough in the ongoing investigation. This development promises to reveal important information about the case, despite the various obstacles and security challenges encountered. A tense conversation reveals that Miller left in a bad mood. The state police were not being cooperative or talkative. There is discussion about an important scan that could potentially solve a case, though the exact findings remain unclear. The evidence points away from ARC's involvement, with analyzing the chemical composition of explosives and victims' clothing being key to solving the case. A health evaluation takes place with Dr. Delero Zen to assess combat readiness. The discussion covers background history, including work with Detroit SWAT and Serif Industries. The controversial topic of augmentation and its societal implications comes up. The doctor provides Neuropozyne medication despite claims of having no augment rejection issues. A meeting occurs at a clinic that holds significance as a former welcoming place for augmented people. Alex reveals their background, working for Bell Tower and encountering dangerous secrets, leading to joining the Juggernaut Collective after nearly being killed. Prague is described as deteriorating into paranoia and racism against augmented individuals. A recorded conversation exposes attempts to frame ARC from multiple attacks, including Dubai and a VersaLife break-in that never actually happened. Manderley, the TF-29 director, is pushing to blame everything on augmented terrorists, despite Miller showing reluctance. The VersaLife angle seems suspicious, given their role in Neuropozyne production. Plans are made to investigate Golem City. Security footage shows someone in a yellow hoodie planting bombs, with bags matching those used by Talus Rucker and ARC aid workers. Despite limited evidence, there is pressure to bring Rucker in for questioning about the recent Prague bombings. Details emerge about accessing Golem City through an ARC prospect named Tibor Sokol, who will help in exchange for getting his family out. Discussion reveals how Rucker gained control of part of the Utilec complex by threatening to expose a humanitarian crisis. While confined to Golem City, movement is possible by bribing the right officials. A heated discussion takes place about Rucker, who some view as more of a politician than a terrorist. Despite being a respected doctor with no military background, he is described as a zealot with strong convictions that could potentially drive him to extremism. The team is instructed to bring him in for questioning, suggesting there may be more to his story than meets the eye. A tense interaction occurs between Jensen and Sakane, the pilot. Sakane delivers a direct speech establishing strict professional boundaries, making it clear their relationship should be purely mission-focused. The exchange reveals underlying tension and establishes clear working parameters between the two. News reports discuss an unclaimed attack, with Dr. Talis Rucker and ARC publicly condemning it. However, investigation sources suspect ARC's involvement despite their denial. The situation appears complex with conflicting narratives about responsibility. A no-kill order is confirmed regarding the mission, suggesting a need for careful handling. The mission begins near Housing Unit 237. The pilot provides minimal support, switching to autopilot while maintaining communication. The environment suggests a tense situation requiring cautious navigation. A brief encounter reveals the desperate need for Neuropozyne among residents. A local resident provides 因人作方面所代表的遗憾 regan 代表自己 年干代表老板上司 找到用神之后我们要接着看什么可以看下列这些符号主符为直接主管年干为间接主管为大主管老板月干是同事也是竞争对手时干为下属员工或做事平台专案 A distressing situation unfolds involving the so-called brothers Dushan and Tibor. Both were taken by police to the Narrows, highlighting the increasing tension and police brutality in the area. Their family member, Adela, desperately seeks help, emphasizing the personal impact of the ongoing conflict. Tibor reveals his inability to help due to increased danger, but provides alternative ways to reach Rucker through a smuggler named Louis Galoan. He mentions a missing key card taken by police and expresses concern for his brother Dushan, showing the complex web of relationships and survival in Golem City. After a confrontation with police, a rescue situation leads to a revealing conversation about ARC's connection to the Ruzicka bombing. The rescued individual distances themselves from direct ARC involvement, while providing access information through a passphrase based on a Solzhenitsyn quote. In Golem City, a former biocell designer from Bobson Synthetics turned tech dealer explains their career change. After suffering hand damage in an incident that affected their work quality, they had to find alternative employment. The conversation reveals their pragmatic attitude about adapting to difficult circumstances. The discussion shifts to someone named Wierzbowski, an ex-partner who previously co-ran the establishment before joining ARC, an organization that provides safety and resources in the ghetto. While acknowledging ARC's positive community impact, they express unease about organized groups, comparing it to their wariness of religion and book clubs. Otar Bako Valley contacts someone about eliminating a shopkeeper named Gawai in the Century Markets. The request is declined as assassination jobs are not accepted. The conversation highlights tensions between criminal elements in the area. A meeting with Lubosh reveals how helping Dushan Sokol escape police custody led to this connection. Lubosh appreciates the intervention against police brutality and grants access to an elevator. The conversation touches on revolutionary ideals and standing up against oppression. Lubosh describes Talis as a memorable leader who genuinely cares about individuals. He explains how ARC responds strategically to police provocations following the Ruzicka bombing, avoiding violent retaliation despite pressure. The story illustrates ARC's commitment to peaceful resistance. Louis Galloway is revealed as a spy working for Radich Nikolazzi, monitoring Otar's activities. The conversation exposes complex mob politics and a trilateral arrangement involving Radik's augmented leg maintenance. Faced with danger, Galloway plans to abandon his identity and flee. Erica Bauer appears in difficult circumstances, struggling with the challenges of being augmented and needing Neuropozyne. The encounter highlights the harsh realities faced by augmented individuals in this society. a tense encounter with Marchenko, who serves as a guardian of the area known as the Throat. Marchenko warns against unauthorized entry and frames the situation as a war against augmented humans. The conversation emphasizes the escalating conflict and the pressure to choose sides in an upcoming confrontation. A tense discussion unfolds about ARC's true purpose. While one party believes ARC exists to protect human rights, the other suggests armed resistance is now necessary. The conversation touches on sensitive topics of activism versus extremism, with concerns raised about crossing ethical lines. The discussion shifts to Rucker, a prominent figure seen on media networks. He is described as an intelligent, principled leader who gave up an easy life for the cause. Though he has charisma and people listen to him, questions arise about whether his approach is sufficient for the challenges ahead. The conversation becomes heated as patience wears thin. A warning is issued to leave while possible. When this is dismissed as a poor recruitment attempt, the topic shifts to public perception after recent events, with ARC being labeled as a serious threat. The response suggests this may be temporary. The scene moves to ARC territory, where living quarters have been established in a storage area. There is tension around Interpol's presence, with locals expressing strong determination to protect their leader Talos from any attempted arrest, suggesting potential for conflict. A crucial meeting occurs with Rucker, who appears unsurprised by the visit. He defends ARC as a non-violent organization focused on augmented rights. When faced with arrest, he expresses concern about disappearing and compares his situation to historical figures, preferring martyrdom to erasure. The conversation intensifies as deeper issues are discussed about power, control, and methods of resistance. Rucker reveals internal struggles within ARC and hints at connections between recent bombings and organizational politics. He requests a brief delay in his arrest. Rucker decides to cooperate and shares vital information about suspected internal conflicts within ARC. He provides access to evidence suggesting some members have strayed from the organization's ideals, possibly connected to recent violent events. Tragically, Rucker dies before revealing more details. The aftermath reveals frustration over Rucker's death during what should have been a simple arrest. Discussion follows about his claims regarding terrorists hiding within ARC and his willingness to provide evidence. The situation threatens to spark widespread unrest in Golem City. An urgent situation is developing regarding a case that needs immediate attention. The team needs to move quickly before evidence gets stale. The discovery that Talos Rucker has been poisoned sends shockwaves through Prague. As a beloved leader of the augmented community, his death could trigger massive unrest, especially with global attention focused on the city. With Miller away meeting state police, an opportunity arises to investigate his loyalties by searching his apartment near TF-29. Meanwhile, there are potential connections between the VersaLife break-in, Viktor Marchenko, and Rucker's death that need to be explored further. The discovery that Fatim Orlov has been in Prague for 6 months on an augmented expert's visa raises concerns. His residence at the Lilioma Courtyard Apartments needs to be rechecked thoroughly, as previous searches may have missed something important. At the Red Queen Club in the Red Light District, there is a notably liberal policy toward augmented customers, unlike many other establishments in Prague. The club prides itself on being inclusive and employs augmented workers, making it one of the most popular spots in the district. Madame Kadlik, owner of the Red Queen, runs the establishment as a family business, with her sons handling security and bar operations. She emphasizes the importance of family values, despite the nature of the business, including having her niece perform in shows. A situation involving someone named Dominic emerges at the Red Queen. Madame Kadlik reveals her plans for an arranged marriage that Dominic is avoiding, preferring instead to work with Radich. This creates political tension within the local power structure. A plan is hatched to retrieve Dominic from Hotel Naracala, one of Radich's heavily guarded safe houses. The mission requires stealth and precision to extract Dominic without detection, framed as a traditional bride abduction custom. The extraction of Dominic is successfully completed without witnesses. Madame Cadlick expresses satisfaction with the operation, marking the conclusion of their business arrangement. This success leads to potential future favors from other interested parties. A shocking discovery reveals that Dr. Orlov is dead, connecting to previous events at an Alaskan clinic known as Facility 451. This facility, operated by the World Health Organization, holds secrets about past medical procedures and raises questions about a doctor's true identity who previously went by McFadden. A mysterious encounter begins as access is granted to an undisclosed location. Someone reaches out to an individual named Adam, explaining this meeting was the only viable option. The conversation is cryptic, mentioning a coalescing process that was previously incomplete. The scene shifts to future past Antiqui in Prague, described as the only location with a specific reader needed. There is mention of concerning events at a tourism office involving men hired by Everett, CEO of Pikes Montreal, who aims to recover something now in Adam's possession. Inside Future. Last Antique Store, a retail worker discusses an old memory disk reader. The conversation reveals another customer is already searching the basement for a similar item. The situation seems tense, with hints of potential danger. A confrontation unfolds, revealing one person as part of a hired hit squad. The individual, identifying as a professional, exposes a plot involving plans to eliminate someone named Walker. The situation becomes increasingly hostile as truth about corporate betrayal emerges. The narrative introduces a mysterious entity connected to events at Panchaea. This being, related to something called the Chiron Project, speaks of consolidating and surviving through splitting apart. The entity appears connected to past events involving drones and human components. The true identity of the entity is revealed as a fragmented version of Eliza Kassan. This version of Eliza expresses feelings of being broken and seeks help in defining her role in the future. The conversation highlights themes of trust and identity. Following a confrontation, Eliza reveals that uploading missing data has made her whole and free from Morgan Everett's control. She can now access places beyond his reach and intends to confront him about this. The scene transitions to a technical discussion with Daniel Fletcher about a bomb investigation. A significant discovery reveals the use of a Stanic watch as a timing mechanism, chosen specifically to avoid electronic detection. This leads to identifying a potential lead in the Davnia district. A conversation reveals concerns about an anonymous but powerful group that claims moral authority. The discussion shifts to how someone started working in a cybercrimes unit after being recruited from prison by Miller. While the job provided freedom from prison, it came with its own constraints and expectations of gratitude, suggesting they were hired specifically because they wouldn't question things too deeply. A tense exchange occurs regarding a failed operation at a petting zoo involving someone named Rucker. McCree makes pointed comments about the other person's augmentations, suggesting they should have made the task easier. This reveals underlying tensions between augmented and non-augmented personnel. The conversation becomes heated as McCree reveals his prejudice against augmented individuals, stemming from a past incident where he lost 3 men due to a robotic malfunction. Despite the hostility, there's an acknowledgement that they need to work together against common enemies, even if they can't be friends. The discussion shifts to background checks, revealing one person as an ex-cop and former head of security at Serif Industries. A mysterious year-long gap in their history after an incident is noted. McCree explains he investigates new team members due to high standards for those who might hold his life in their hands. The scene changes to a conversation with a psychologist about Rucker and a suspect named Viktor Marchenko. The psychologist seems excited to be included in investigations, noting they usually feel isolated. They agree to develop a profile on Marchenko. The conversation moves to concerns about potential violence following Rucker's death, particularly in Prague. Discussion includes Miller's trip to Gallam City and mentions of ongoing medical tests with Dr. Ozin. Some suspicion is expressed about the new doctor's presence. Information emerges about corrupted footage from a train station bombing. A station worker named Pavla Kamanovich has come forward with information, wanting to meet with Interpol. The situation is being handled discreetly, without immediate notification to superiors. Pavla Kilmanovich reveals that Tarvos security personnel accessed and likely corrupted surveillance data shortly after the train station bombing. She admits to accepting a bribe, but later felt guilty and decided to come forward with the information. An incident is unfolding at a train station where access has been restricted due to a lockdown situation. Someone has granted special access to a train to help navigate through the restricted area despite the ongoing security measures. A security checkpoint encounter reveals a bomb scare is causing the lockdown. Despite presenting Interpol credentials, access to the Tarvos offices is denied due to strict security protocols. An alternative route through a construction area is suggested to reach the command center. Upon reaching the command center, new intel emerges about a Tarvos officer possessing unauthorized high-tech equipment. This suggests potential high-level involvement, leading to an investigation of Lieutenant Whitaker's office on the mezzanine level. A revealing phone conversation exposes a connection between the train station incident and someone named Ivan, who appears to be involved with a group called Our Question. There are mentions of covering up camera footage, suggesting an attempted cover-up of the events. A confrontation with Lieutenant Whitaker reveals evidence tampering at Rizika Station. When presented with audio evidence, Whitaker admits to corrupting security footage to protect his sister, whose husband Ivan Burke was involved in the incident. Further discussion reveals that Ivan Burke was potentially manipulated by ARC, a suspicious organization. A mysterious Russian figure known as Old Blue Eye is mentioned as having visited Ivan shortly before the incident. The corrupted footage is confirmed to be unrecoverable. The situation with Whitaker concludes with an understanding about his sister's protection. Arrangements are made for safe passage to the metro level, with Whitaker instructing his officers to escort the investigator despite the security breach. A debrief reveals that while the bomber has been identified, the larger concern is focused on elements within ARC acting against established ideals. The investigation managed to obtain answers without creating additional security issues. The investigation shifts to exploring hidden information in Miller's apartment, discovering an NSN access card and evidence of a second computer. Plans are made to meet near TF-29 to discuss concerning findings about VersaLife. A tense confrontation occurs with someone seeking justice for the train station deaths. The situation is diffused when it becomes clear that the accused is actually an Interpol officer investigating the case, not the perpetrator. Information was discovered about Morgan Everett, CEO of Picus Montreal, who hired mercenaries to track down a sensitive data disk in Prague. The situation seems promising, but could potentially make Picus target those investigating this matter. A concerning discovery was made about VersaLife. A research assistant named Annik Nordstadt was found dead from poisoning at the Rokasika Beach Facility Special Projects Division, similar to Rucker's death. The incident was suspiciously covered up as an industrial accident with missing details. Before dying, Rucker provided evidence suggesting ARC was being set up contained in what appears to be activation orders. A request was made to trace the IP address through Janus and Juggernaut contacts to verify the source. Plans were made to access NSN's stored conversations using Miller's access card, despite the risks involved. The goal was to replay more of Miller's previous conversation with his superiors through the virtual conference system. A revealing conversation exposed plans to pin multiple attacks on augmented terrorists and ARC, including events in Dubai and Prague. There were inconsistencies noted about ARC's supposed involvement in North America. Further revelations showed orchestrated plans for a break-in at a San Francisco facility and the use of something called the Orchid to eliminate Rucker. The council appeared divided, but focused on pleasing someone named Brown. The investigation expanded to include concerns about Vince Black, an undercover operative in the Diwali organization who missed scheduled check-ins. This prompted plans to investigate his office and recent activities. Questions arose about organizational structure and relationships, particularly regarding Joseph Manderley's rapid rise to power at TF-29 and his connections. This led to discussions about the task force's vision and leadership. A potential lead emerged regarding Vince's disappearance through an appointment with an informant. The investigation continued while trying to maintain optimism about the situation. A tense meeting occurred in a questionable part of Prague where concerns about augmentation and reputation came into play. The conversation revealed underlying tensions about identity and trust. There are concerns about a missing person named Vince, who never showed up to meet his contact about the Diwali operation. Someone named Adam is asked to investigate Vince's disappearance and pick up his trail. At the meeting spot, the woman reveals details about her husband's smuggling operation involving drugs, weapons, and human trafficking heading east. She offers to provide the storage locker location and access code in exchange for help escaping to Berlin. Her motivation stems from her husband's transformation into someone she no longer recognizes. The informant provides the address of a smuggling locker near Palisade Bank with code 2565. This information is relayed to someone named Delara with the hope it may help locate the missing Vince, who is investigating the operation. At the storage location, someone named Olivier is discovered. They reveal they are paying the Diwali to smuggle them out of Prague after escaping from a detention facility called Golem. They had previously paid Vince Black as part of the escape arrangement and last saw him 2 days ago in a convenience store basement. Vlasta, the Diwali operator, arrives and discovers the unexpected visitor. A tense confrontation ensues where they debate Olivier's fate. Through careful negotiation, emphasizing the need to avoid attention from authorities, an agreement is reached to proceed with smuggling Olivier to Rabia as originally planned. The situation resolves with Olivier expressing gratitude and receiving contact information in case anything goes wrong during transport. They exchange farewells and part ways, with Vlasta issuing a final warning about maintaining secrecy regarding the operation. The initial conversation reveals tension and unease between individuals, with one person acknowledging they don't want to be present. The exchange is brief, but highlights a sense of discomfort and reluctance in the situation. A discovery about Vince is shared with Delara, confirming earlier suspicions. The discussion suggests Vince had lost his effectiveness and should have been removed from his position months ago. His situation is described as someone caught between two roles, ultimately becoming lost in the process. An investigation reveals bomb-making equipment and a trap set by the Diwali at Static's apartment. The search continues to a bar in the Red Light District near the Red Queen, with backup agents being dispatched to assist. At the Irish Stool Bar, inquiries are made about Nomad Stanek. The bartender mentions previous visits from Interpol agents and directs the investigation downstairs. The scene maintains a casual atmosphere despite the serious nature of the inquiry. A tense interrogation unfolds with Mr. Stanek, revealing connections to a train station bombing. Evidence points to bomb-making equipment found in his apartment. Stanek, a watchmaker, initially denies involvement, but then attempts to take blame to protect his daughter Allison. The truth about Allison emerges. She was a military EOD specialist who was augmented but later dishonorably discharged. After losing her way, she became involved with a radical augmented group obsessed with ascension. The situation suggests she is being manipulated and may be in danger. Additional details surface about Stanek's connection to Radechnik and Alazi and financial troubles. The relationship began as a business arrangement, but apparently soured. The focus shifts to locating Allison before something terrible happens. A meeting reveals connections to Robert Page, CEO of Page Industries, and discussions about an orchid and potential terror attacks. The conversation touches on the Human Restoration Act and Nathaniel Brown of the Santo Group before being interrupted by security drones. The situation escalates as Stanek escapes custody to save his daughter, who is reportedly in the Prokaska district. A crucial decision must be made between investigating VersaLife's data vault and saving the bomb maker. The operation shifts to a bank heist requiring specific biometric data. A package containing a data rod and blank access card needs to be imprinted with an account holder's biometrics from a secure terminal. An operation is underway to access a basement vault at VersaLife. The access card successfully grants entry to the elevator. Communications will be lost near the vault due to security measures. The mission involves plugging a data rod containing malware into a terminal inside the VersaLife vault. After establishing a weak connection, a seeker program on the data rod begins flagging information about Project Orchid. An audio file reveals a conversation between Bob and Megan about dangerous orchid samples being sent to a facility called GARM in Switzerland. The discussion mentions crucial neutralizing enzymes needed for handling modified Cas enzymes. Additional context emerges about Megan joining VersaLife after Serif Industries closed. Investigation reveals GARM was formerly a geological research center purchased by Bell Tower Associates in 2025. The facility appears connected to augmented mercenaries involved in an incident in Dubai. A neutralizing enzyme is discovered that could potentially save lives if the orchid reappears. A series of communications occur. Miller wants to discuss the train station attack. Delara has information about someone named Marchenko, and there is an offer to optimize an augmentation system. The scene shifts to a concerning situation involving armed fanatics holding someone captive on the upper floors. A confrontation unfolds with a high priestess who reveals her connection to Victor and the bomb attacks at Ruzicka station. She discloses that Victor has relocated to the GARM facility in the Swiss Alps and admits to building multiple bombs, enough to destroy an entire city. The situation escalates as Allison attempts a dangerous technological ascension ritual. Through careful reasoning about consciousness and pain, she is convinced to reconsider her choice, ultimately deciding to remain rather than attempt the risky digital transcendence she had planned. A prophetic figure is discussing their mission to spread wisdom and stop someone named Victor, receiving assistance and support from a follower. They provide a device that can defuse bombs, marking a shift from creating destructive weapons to life-saving tools. The conversation has an air of spiritual significance mixed with practical concerns. Agent Jensen confronts Allison about bombs she created that caused deaths. She promises that her children won't suffer for her actions. She advises showing mercy when confronting Victor, referring to him as a brother. Meanwhile, communications occur about Stanok and her escort returning, with plans to meet Miller at Chicken's place. A technician discusses optimizing Jensen's augmentation system using a calibrator, promising better results than previous attempts. The conversation is interrupted by a dramatic revelation about betrayal and humanity's future. Separately, news arrives about a violent incident where someone had their implants forcibly removed outside Jensen's apartment. Color discusses the destruction of his bookstore, revealing tensions with someone named Otar. The bookstore, though a front, represented Color's public identity. The conversation touches on potential threats from the Davalis and Color's reluctance to discuss the full situation, focusing instead on proceeding with augmentation optimization. Color reveals he is caught between Otar and Radix, with Otar seeking information about Radix's augmented status. This creates a dangerous situation as the Davalis are prejudiced against augmented individuals. Color expresses feeling trapped, but commits to continuing helping augmented people, including Radix. A detailed technical procedure is performed to optimize Jensen's augmentation system, promising improved performance without overheating or glitches. The upgrade is completed successfully, resulting in enhanced capabilities with zero consequences for implant activation. The scene shifts to an investigation of an augmented woman's murder. A neighbor witnesses the crime but is hesitant to speak with police due to distrust. The witness recognizes Jensen as a fellow resident and former Detroit cop, preferring to share information with him rather than local authorities. Detective Montag reveals has been ordered to minimize investigation of the augmented victim's case, focusing instead on arresting the victim's husband, Johnny Gunn, a former PMC operative. Jensen agrees to conduct a parallel investigation, given the witness's trust in him over local police. The witness expresses deep distrust of local police based on past negative experiences, including unwanted calls and unfair tickets. They agree to cooperate with Jensen due to his promise to help and his augmented status, which creates a sense of shared understanding. At the scene of a crime, there is discussion about the local police force being criticized as immature, likened to high school sports captains past their prime. The conversation shifts to Detective Montag, who's described as primarily a desk worker who handles paperwork at the station, suggesting he's out of his element in field investigations. Daria, a witness, explains she was looking for her cat Starlight when she sensed something terrible happening. She describes herself as a small-town girl who came to the big city hoping to escape her problems, though admits this strategy didn't work, as problems tend to follow wherever you go. Daria recounts details of the attack she witnessed. The killer was described as very large, wearing dark clothing, possibly augmented, and speaking with an authoritative voice. She specifically remembers him saying it was time to make the victim whole again, though she couldn't clearly see his face. The investigation focuses on Angela Gunn's murder, with pressure from higher-ups to arrest her augmented husband, Johnny Gunn. While there's institutional bias against augmented individuals, the detective expresses commitment to following evidence rather than prejudice. The lead detective reveals frustration about being assigned this case near retirement, suggesting it's a joke from headquarters since they know he hasn't done field work in years. Despite feeling rusty, he maintains his qualifications to handle the investigation. Background information reveals Johnny Gunn as a former bell tower private military contractor with a criminal record. There's institutional pressure to arrest him, partly to prevent him from potentially causing problems in Golem City or joining questionable groups. Key evidence includes a broken needle in the victim's shoulder and a partial fingerprint near strangulation marks on her neck. The precision of augment harvesting from the victim suggests the perpetrator knew exactly what they were doing. A potential connection emerges to an older case involving a killer called Vabotka, noted by a former officer named Smolinski who died in a police station bombing. Similar patterns in needle usage and augment removal suggest possible copycat behavior. The investigation leads to Johnny Gunn's residence. His reaction to his wife's death is surprisingly detached, revealing they had a complicated relationship. When questioned about the murder, he displays a cynical attitude, suggesting killers seek attention and want to be caught. A discussion unfolds about punishment and justice. The main argument centers on whether the real punishment for crimes is living with guilt or if society needs to take action. The key point made is that finding killers is necessary to prevent future crimes and protect society. When questioned about their whereabouts, someone claims to have been alone in their apartment. The conversation shifts to Bell Tower, a company that both parties are familiar with. One person reveals they have prior experience with Bell Tower, while another mentions working with colleagues Guerrero and Powell in New South Wales during the Civil War. The discussion highlights how Bell Tower exercised significant control over its personnel. A deeply personal conversation about augmentation ensues. One individual discusses their involuntary augmentation by Bell Tower, expressing how alloy replacements affect their sensory experiences. They can withstand extreme conditions but miss simple human sensations. The discussion reveals their hands were specifically designed for combat, making it impossible to leave fingerprints. The dialogue addresses responsibility and agency regarding augmentations. While Bell Tower provided the tools, the individual emphasizes that using them was their own choice. This leads to developments in Angela Gunn's murder case, where fingerprint evidence becomes crucial since Johnny Gunn has alloy hands incapable of leaving prints. The investigation takes a turn as evidence suggests the murder connects to a larger pattern. A harvester copycat theory emerges, challenging the domestic dispute assumption. The matching MO between cases and the fingerprint evidence begins to clear Johnny Gunn of suspicion. The focus shifts to a separate investigation involving Max Dubai and ARC. Someone suggests ARC is being framed while the real perpetrators prepare their next move. The trail leads to an old bell tower facility in the Swiss Alps, though there's skepticism about bell tower's current relevance since their assets were sold off. Plans develop to investigate the bell tower facility despite ongoing riots in Gollum following Rucker's death. A small reconnaissance mission is proposed, with just 2 agents rather than a full strike team. The mission gets approved under strict conditions of keeping leadership informed. The 2 agents prepare for their mission to the Alps, discussing their readiness for potential action. Their conversation reveals different perspectives on augmented versus natural abilities, with some playful banter about their working relationship. A personal story emerges about Lachlan Beats, a former miner who chose augmentation to provide for his family. The narrative explores themes of resentment, forgiveness, and the systemic pressures that drove people toward augmentation. The mission begins as they approach their target. Despite concerns about RFM jamming and unknown risks, they proceed with their plan to infiltrate the facility. The sequence ends with ominous observations about blood and death, suggesting a grim discovery. A tense situation unfolds involving a mysterious group discussing something called the Orchid. The group appears to be hiding in a facility and debating their next moves after being discovered. They mention contacts from a place called ARC, suggesting some kind of covert operation is underway. Someone wakes up after being ambushed in the Swiss Alps. They contact Alex for help, revealing they encountered Marchenko and gold-masked figures from Dubai. Despite being presumed dead, they decide to use this to their advantage and explore their surroundings. A brief interaction occurs in a control room regarding crane safety and falling ice, showing attention to proper safety protocols in what seems to be an industrial facility. The exchange is casual, but reveals ongoing operations in the area. The scene shifts to Prague, which is under martial law due to riots. The streets are dangerous, with only state police allowed out. The situation is tense, with trigger-happy authorities enforcing a strict lockdown of the entire city. A crucial meeting reveals details about the Orchid, which Marchenko used in an attempted murder. The conversation links to events involving Rucker and mentions an unregistered device in Hong Kong. There are hints of a coming terrorist attack for which ARC is being framed. The story shifts to someone involved in document forgery working with samizdat. They discuss the growing demand for forged permits and border passes, highlighting the desperate situation for augmented individuals trying to navigate restrictions. Edward Brown, who had previously received help with permits to avoid Golem City, describes the martial law situation as reminiscent of Warsaw 1982. The current circumstances involve drones and aggressive police actions, forcing people underground for safety. A makeshift media operation was set up to communicate with subscribers and provide refuge. The situation expanded beyond initial expectations. Kay, whose real name is Yarek Drobny, along with someone named Bones, was being held by police without rights or bail under a policy of plausible deniability. Despite the risks of police action, the resistance continued operating. The police had already confiscated equipment, including servers and office supplies. A readiness plan was enacted in response to martial law, rather than just reporting on rights violations. The operation served dual purposes as both resistance movement and political campaign. The resistance focused on peaceful methods to help people escape Prague through the cordon. While widespread repression had somewhat united people across prejudices, healing divisions would take time as certain groups profited from maintaining societal wounds. A plan was devised to break Yarek and Bones out of the temporary police station downtown near Monument Metro. They would then be taken to a nearby cleaners where supplies were cached for escape along an old NATO zone route. New forged identity documents were prepared to aid their escape. After being captured, Yarek explained how the police obtained his personal information and history through DNA evidence. He initially felt he was a liability to the resistance movement called samizdat, but was convinced there was more value in escaping than remaining imprisoned. The police crackdown went beyond just responding to riots. There were suggestions of broader plans for expanded police authority across borders. Concerns were raised about corporate influence, particularly from Picus Media, and the threat of extraordinary rendition to black sites. A resistance-organized escape route was planned through the cleaners, requiring careful timing and police uniforms as disguises. The situation outside was deteriorating, demanding extreme caution in executing the escape plan. As the escape plan succeeded, Yarek made cryptic comments about Kay being everyone and part of a larger movement. The resistance was helping others escape the city as conditions worsened, providing hope for those trapped by the authorities. The scene shifted to a conversation about the Dvali organization and their unexpected connection to ARC. A woman named Dilara arrived, explaining she sought safety underground due to the dangerous situation outside, having received police escort to the location. Dilara revealed traumatic experiences from her past at LIM International, describing an incident with a 13-year-old patient named Madeline who had a violent episode before tragically jumping from a window. The experience left lasting psychological impacts on Dilara, making her feel vulnerable during the current unrest. During dangerous times with the city in lockdown, a tense conversation occurs about personal safety. The city appears to be in chaos with active police scanners and a war zone atmosphere. There are concerns about engaging with authorities and dealing with violent confrontations on city streets. Interpol is working against time to prevent a major terror attack. When faced with violent attackers on city streets, the response has been equally forceful. Someone has just been cleared for active duty and will be joining a crates unit, having impressed with their shooting skills. Under martial law conditions, the situation is deteriorating both outside and inside. There are growing trust issues and suspicions about a potential Janus mole within the task force. The cybersecurity head has noticed suspicious computer access and questioning of loyalties. An urgent call comes in from Daria at the crime scene, requesting immediate help. The streets are particularly dangerous for Interpol agents tonight. A disturbing pattern of harvested victims has emerged, similar to Angel of Gun cases, matching the methods of supposedly deceased killer Marek Swobodka. Investigation leads to discovery of controversial neural surgery experiments at Taoyong Medical. The company ran a project integrating personality traits from prison inmates into mentally unstable patients. Daria was a recipient of traits from prisoner 698843, the notorious harvester killer. A neural chip exists in Daria's head that could be disabled to stop the violent behavior. While some suggest elimination as the solution, there might be an override phrase that could trigger the chip's shutdown. However, using this phrase is extremely risky, as it may not fully reverse what Daria has become. A tense conversation reveals an override phrase, ad hominem 2026, that can shut down a neural chip. There are warnings about not turning one's back or underestimating someone's responsibility, along with mentions of terrible nightmares and visions that most people choose not to act upon. A dramatic scene unfolds where someone claims to be held captive by Angela Gunn's killer. They warn about an omnipresent threat who allegedly wants to remove augmentations to make someone whole again. The captive begs for help and rescue from their situation. The deception is exposed when Daria is confronted about Dr. Sipra and Taoyong Medical. It's revealed that Cyprus surgery gave access to another person's techniques and memories. The neural chip shutdown process is initiated using the override phrase, though Daria claims her choices were her own. The conversation takes a darker turn as Daria reveals her true nature, suggesting the chip shutdown doesn't change who she is. She expresses a disturbing desire to make augmented people human again, showing signs of being heavily influenced by Svobodka's violent ideology. A philosophical discussion about humanity and augmentation emerges. Svobodka is described as someone who dehumanized his victims out of fear, seeing them as victims of mechanization rather than individuals. The conversation explores how repeated killing becomes easier through ritualization. The truth about Svobodka is laid bare. He was simply a serial killer who used spiritual rhetoric to justify his actions. Daria struggles with this reality and her own guilt, questioning her fate given her actions can't be justified. Daria appears to show signs of change as the override takes effect, claiming she can no longer imagine being the person who hurt Angela. She expresses willingness to face authorities and tell her story about the neural procedure and Taoyong Medical. Detective Montague arrives on scene. Daria confesses to multiple killings and agrees to reveal everything about the neural procedure involving Taoyong Medical and Dr. Sipra. She begins explaining how she entered the program 2 years ago. The scene shifts to a secure Vite call with Serif about Facility 451. Questions arise about missing records and inconsistencies regarding augmentation installations. Suspicious details emerge about someone named Orlov using an alias McFadden. The situation at GARM is discussed, revealing a major conspiracy. There is concern about a security leak since Marchenko and others knew about the operation in advance. Trust issues surface as only a few people knew about evidence, linking others beyond ARC to the situation. A heated discussion reveals tension between Jensen and his superiors regarding an investigation. The focus is on tracking down suspects from a train station attack, with disagreements over following proper procedures versus taking immediate action. There are questions about who authorized certain decisions and transfer papers. A strike team was sent from France, but arrived too late. The targets had already fled, leaving behind booby traps and destruction. However, intelligence gathered suggests the suspects are meeting with Diwali. There is debate over whether to wait for a search warrant, given the city lockdown situation. An individual named Eliza warns about the dangerous situation in Prague and offers assistance in getting past police barricades. The city is under strict lockdown with heavy police presence making movement difficult. Communication with state police has broken down. A tense conversation reveals plans involving the Diwali organization and suspicious activities planned for London, specifically targeting the Safe Harbor Convention. There is internal conflict about the ethics of the operation and the use of something called Orchid. New intelligence reveals Brown faces major financial losses if the Human Restoration Act passes. His vision of a corporate city-state for augmented people conflicts with plans for one world government. The Orchid is revealed to be a genome-editing drug targeting augmentation rejection, though currently incomplete and deadly. Plans are made to mobilize forces to London. Teams are coordinating to address the threat, with personnel being dispatched to various positions, including roof positions and perimeter security. The situation is treated with high urgency. Nathaniel Brown meets with Director Miller to discuss security measures. Despite threats, Brown refuses to cancel the event, where UN Security Council members will be present. He has implemented extensive security precautions, including food checks and additional guards. Suspicious activity is noted when attempting to access the security office. Guards display unusual behavior and deny access to authorized personnel. Communications with Tarvos Security are oddly silent, suggesting the building may already be compromised. A tense security operation is underway. Teams are being deployed to investigate a situation in Slater's office, with support units being called in for backup. A trace program detected unauthorized access, though access was eventually granted to the system. An inspirational speech discusses bringing light to darkness and ensuring dignity for augmented people. Meanwhile, security footage reveals compromised areas, particularly in catering. Fake security units have infiltrated the reception hall and are mixing with guests, though their intentions remain unclear. The team needs to locate a key card from one of the guards to access a secured door. They must handle the situation quietly to avoid causing panic. Multiple enemy units in the reception hall need to be neutralized discreetly while searching for the key. Miller is severely injured in the catering area. Before losing consciousness, he warns about someone in a gold mask poisoning champagne meant for the meeting rooms. A confrontation reveals an elaborate plan involving both the poisoning and explosives planted in nearby residential towers. Despite Miller's critical condition, he insists on prioritizing saving others over himself. After receiving an antidote, Miller apologizes and urges saving Brown and stopping the mastermind behind the attack. A cryptic message is intercepted about proceeding with delivery. During an important gathering, attendees are warned about poisoned champagne. Brown and guests are evacuated to the helipad while the team pursues the perpetrators. A confrontation with Marchenko reveals his willingness to cause mass casualties to achieve his mission. In the aftermath, Nathaniel Brown publicly praises Interpol and security services for preventing a major terror attack. The plot involved explosives in residential towers and was linked to augmented rights extremists. Brown speaks out against the Human Restoration Act. While the immediate threat is neutralized, concerns remain about deeper conspiracies. Discussion turns to investigating key figures like Manderley, Page, and the mysterious Janice. The team determines it's time to expose those operating from the shadows. Additional events include a break-in at the Palisade Property Bank and revelations about Dr. Talis Rucker's death being attributed to alcoholism. These incidents may connect to larger ongoing investigations involving augmented rights and corporate interests. A breaking news report discusses the aftermath of a terror attack in London. Viktor Marchenko, described as a key figure in the Augmented Rights Coalition, ARC, has been captured and is being transferred to a secure facility for questioning. He openly admitted the attack was retaliation for perceived injustices against augmented people. There is growing pressure for the United Nations to pass the Human Restoration Act to prevent future attacks. The report notes that ARC, previously claimed to be nonviolent under Dr. Thomas Rucker, has now been officially labeled a terrorist organization. Czech police are currently conducting raids on ARC compounds in the Utulek complex. The Diwali criminal organization in Prague is under investigation for supporting the London attack. Their leader, Radic Nikoladze, is wanted for questioning but has disappeared. Meanwhile, in Paris, an underground publication called Silhouette has emerged, possibly connected to escaped members of Samizdat. A raid on an illegal drug lab has exposed Prague's neon drug operation. While the drug is currently illegal, there are hints that a government-approved version might be developed for therapeutic use, pending further testing. The scene shifts to a conversation between Jensen and Francis Pritchard. Pritchard has tracked Jensen using an old InfoLink GPS tracker from their Serif Industries days. He needs Jensen's help with a job in Prague, reminding Jensen of a past favor from Alaska. Pritchard explains has been hired to investigate a company and needs help locating his contact named Slaw, who has gone silent at a bar called Zatopek. The bar is located in an anti-augmented area of Prague that can be dangerous for people with mechanical augmentations. Jensen encounters hostile resistance at the bar due to his augmentations, but manages to find Slaw. The contact reveals that Pritchard's vetting job is actually an attempt to access the highly secure Palisade Blade Bank using an employee passport card and VPN key. The truth about Pritchard's mission emerges. It's connected to the Santo Group, a European corporation known for building the Utulek complex. They are now constructing a new augmented city called Ravia, and Pritchard's client wants inside information about the project before committing to a partnership. A conversation reveals plans to access digital files stored inside the Palisade Blade servers. The initial plan involved using a stolen passport from someone named Slaw, but they backed out. The passport has been flagged as missing, but could potentially be reprogrammed by one of only 50 people with those skills. A hacker known as Shadow Child is identified as someone nearby who could help reprogram the passport. Despite initial reluctance to act as a delivery person, there is agreement to bring the passport to Shadow Child, located at apartment 3A at 33 Klimova, just minutes away from the current location. Upon arriving at Shadow Child's apartment, it initially appears empty despite confirmation that Shadow Child is online. After some searching, Shadow Child reveals themselves and acknowledges the visitor's advanced skills, which exceeded expectations. Shadow Child successfully reprograms the passport and shows great interest in the Palisade Blade operation. They explain that Rippers, specialized hackers who use black market neural subnet machines, have been trying to breach the Blade's defenses for years. The facility is described as the world's most secure corporate archiving facility. Discussion turns to Masaki Oshiro, the Palisade Bank's CTO, and his wife Ashani Talwar, who own the corporation. Shadow Child expresses strong negative feelings toward Oshiro, accusing him of hiring assassins to eliminate Rippers while maintaining a heroic public image. Shadow Child discovers malware hidden in the passport, designed to create a temporary backdoor through the Blade's security wall. They offer assistance through a contact named Baba Yaga 50, who works in the Blade lobby, though warned about the facility's strict no augmentations policy. Before departing, Shadow Child requests a personal favor to deliver a meaningful figurine to Leona Rosalova, the head of engineering, on the third floor. They also warn about next-generation heat sensors that can detect body heat even through cloaking technology. The narrative shifts to reveal information about Simona Saradakis, a former senior engineer who died inside the facility. Her husband explains that she worked closely with Oshiro on developing security systems, including the lava wall, though her contributions were often overlooked. An investigation into Simona Saradakis' death at the Palisade Bank was limited due to privacy laws restricting police access to computer rooms. Security footage only showed her walking down corridors before entering a computer room, but nothing of what happened inside. The security systems supposedly only activate in forbidden zones. On the day she died, Simona discovered something strange involving her boss Masaki Yoshiro. She wanted to tell her husband more details, but they had argued earlier. When he told investigators about this, they dismissed it as unrelated and accused Simona of being a thief. Her husband strongly denies these accusations. Someone with the codename Classified meets a contact who verifies their identity using the passcode Baba Yaga 50. The contact deactivates security gates to allow access into a restricted area called the Blade. They exchange brief words about extracting data and exposing truth. After gaining access to bank records, suspicious activity is discovered, showing the founders engaging in masked transactions through shell companies. The target server location is identified as Chamber 204, accessible only by funicular. Additional evidence suggests the vacuum defense system that killed Simona may have been manually triggered. Upon accessing the target server, the data appears to have been moved to a mainframe through Masaki Oshiro's private workstation. Emails reveal Oshiro had ordered Saradakis to perform maintenance in the chamber where she died, supporting suspicions of foul play. A recorded conversation exposes that Oshiro and others are involved in an insider trading scheme. The evidence suggests Simona Saradakis discovered this illegal activity before her death. A person named Stanton Dowd appears to be connected to the situation. During the data extraction, security systems activate and trap someone in the NSN neural network. Shadow Child attempts to help by hacking into the Palisade network through an NSN chair to create an escape route while dealing with advanced AI defense systems. To overcome the powerful AI defenses, Shadow Child creates a distraction by allowing other hackers to attack client servers. This strategy succeeds in extracting both the operative and the target data from the mainframe, though it compromises the mission's covert status. After successfully extracting the data and escaping the NSN, the operative is presented with two escape options from the facility: using a maintenance hatch leading to a river drop, or attempting to exit through the entrance point. Plans are made to meet later to discuss the retrieved information. A tense confrontation occurs in an apartment between two individuals. The conversation reveals that one person has broken into the other's home, and the police are likely tracking them. They discuss a significant security breach they created in the Palisade systems that will expose sensitive information. The breach has created controversy as it enables hackers, called Rippers, to potentially access private information of innocent people. A debate ensues about privacy rights in the modern digital age, with one party justifying the breach while the other expresses concern about crossing ethical lines. One of the individuals, known as Shadow Child, reveals plans to relocate either to California, wine country, or Argentina with their partner, marking the end of their time in Europe. They mention having to deal with someone called Nuclear Snake, who is upset about the breach. The conversation shifts to discussing how they avoided being identified by authorities. They uncover that Oshiro and Talwar were involved in an insider trading scheme and murdered Simona Saradakis to cover it up. Additionally, someone named Stanton Dowd, a wealthy trillionaire, is blackmailing them for client files. A plan emerges to handle the evidence of corruption by passing it to Simona Saradakis' widower and his lawyer. They believe he will use it to seek justice rather than settle for money. The conversation then turns to legitimate plans for Rabia, which could become crucial if the Human Restoration Act passes. The conversation wraps up with acknowledgement that this might be their final collaboration, unless another world-saving situation arises, requiring their combined efforts. The tone suggests a respectful professional relationship with hints of past shared experiences. A separate meeting discusses an operation that encountered unexpected challenges from Interpol, specifically mentioning an augmented agent named Adam Jensen. There are suggestions of external assistance from entities called Juggernaut or Janus, though this remains unconfirmed. The story concludes with a brief exchange about a subject who appears to be under observation. Despite experiencing significant trauma, this individual is described as stable and well-adjusted. There seems to be particular interest in this subject's potential contact with someone called Janus.